Hello. Welcome to, I don't know what this can be called, Car Talk? I think Car Talk's like a real show. Going home with Ben? I don't know. Are you listening to this? Maybe. Guess what? This is probably a Patreon exclusive show. If you're wondering, like, Ben, why are you talking your car for Patreon? Well, look, man. My life... I work a full-time job. I also work on the website and the YouTube channel. Pretty much second full-time job there. At least that's what it feels like. I honestly do not measure the number of hours that I put into it, but I would imagine it is close to, if not exceeding, my job that I work on it. So, anyways, it's hard for me to figure out things that will be of value to the Patreon, and then also be something that I can feasibly do. So this show is pretty much, I think, just gonna be, kind of a, in some ways, I guess, like a secondary podcast, the secret podcast, where I'm just gonna talk to you when I drive home. Because hey, guess what? I can talk while I'm driving home without too much trouble. Generally, there may be some stops. I'm actually gonna go to a Japanese market grocery store thing at some point. So I will do cuts. This will be very raw. There will be basically no editing, as far as I'm aware, at least, unless something awful happens. But yeah, and so I'll stitch the two audio files together, probably at most, if I have to, stop and record. So that's what this is. Going home with Ben, something like that. Episode 1. So yeah. So it's not that long of a drive, honestly, and I'd be upfront with you. This show might be not as video game focused as the normal podcast. Obviously I'm not looking at notes or anything here. I'm not writing anything down, so I don't quite know what this will be yet. It's probably gonna be more of a just Ben and his life kind of thing. That being said, most of my life is about video games, so, or at least at this point. So it probably will still be fairly video game related to some degree. I might try to prepare certain things coming into it. There's a couple ideas I've had in terms of things I could, bring on and just chat about, especially if it's I have nothing new to say other than I'm just currently existing and my life is my life today. So yeah. But yeah, it's like a 20 or so minute drive. But we'll be going to the grocery store. I really need to get a haircut, honestly, more than anything. But yeah, once I get back, I need to probably do a little work on. There's a upcoming podcast. I don't know when this is going to go up, honestly, on the Patreon, because I don't know when the Patreon's going to launch. But at least as of this recording, the podcast with Princess Pokey is going to be going up next week or something. So I gotta kind of wrap that up. There's just I just need to make sure the description is right and have all the links I need. I also need to just kind of rewatch the whole thing and make sure everything rendered out properly, because given that it's something that's considered to be a featured, article thing on the website or featured piece of content, I probably should be a bit more careful about it. The normal podcast does not get a lot of love from me, despite, it probably going to get more editing than this, but I generally try to keep that thing as low rent as possible. I do, edit it to some degree, but it is not something that I spend a ton of time on. And I don't review the render, so if the render ever messes up, well, you'll be the first to tell me, so let me know and I can re-render it, basically. But yeah, it's so I've been working on that, and then also this is also pre the Sin City Anime Convention, which at this point on this Wednesday of this November, whatever today's date is, the 17th, yeah, November 17th. I actually do not really have any true confirmation I'll be presenting at right now. I basically am going in with the assumption that I will, but I have not received any further contact back from the people, which, hey, you know what, I don't want to blame anybody, because the reality is I reached out to them very late, and then also when they contacted me back, I took 24 hours to give them the okay as well. But supposedly I'll be showing something there. If not, any kind of groundwork I've done will be, useful for the future. I do want to do panels and stuff more often. Figuring out the panel idea, honestly, in general, is like, it's a hard balance between thinking about something that I can talk about uniquely, right, and be something that's actually entertaining, and then also be something that's going to actually draw people in. Because I could be like, yeah, man, I want to talk about, I don't know, 24 Tokyo all day long, but nobody cares about 24 Tokyo. So figuring out what topics make sense there is going to be, I think, a big challenge. And I don't really know if you can, like, how flexible different conventions are. Some are more local than others, right? So whatever groundwork I do today, I think will help me in the future, especially with, like, there's a lot of anime conventions locally here in town. So me trying to, like, position the PCFX as a console for anime fans, right, I think is at least a good initial approach. We'll have to see if I have to adjust it from there. But the people at this convention seemed interested, at least. So they assuming I can get everything to work out, we'll see how that goes. It'd be nice because I haven't done any kind of, like, public speaking in a long time outside of the podcast and things like that. So the part of the reason why this thing is even happening, where I'm talking to you while I'm in this car right now, is because I had to buy, like, a lapel microphone, and I wanted something that wasn't going to have to connect to a device. So I got a like an independent one, so it's like a micro SD card in it, and so I'm using that to record this. And I think audio quality wise, it sounds good enough. It's probably not the best thing, but it's a workable audio quality. So it's something that I was like, well, how else can I use this thing? Because I'm trying to all this stuff I bought for this convention was very expensive. It wouldn't make any sense if I was just doing it for this convention, but it makes a lot more sense when I actually, like, think about, like, how else I can use it. So the camera I bought has arrived. Actually, it's actually at my house. We have like one of those Amazon boxes or whatever at the place, and you can basically have it where, or rather, most of the time they drop it off in the Amazon box and get, like, a little code that says, hey, you got your package, here's your code. I did not get that for this thing, so usually I kind of expected going there, but in the case of my $250 camera, I'm assuming it's just sitting on my porch, which is great. So it came on, like, the one day I go into work a week as well. So I mostly work from home at this point. So anyways, once that camera, or I get back home, I'll grab that camera, test it out a little bit, and hopefully be able to record that panel, assuming that it happens, and upload that to YouTube. And see how that goes. The only issue I really have with this microphone so far, from what I've seen, is because it is, like, independent. There's, like, lights and stuff on it to give you information, and it's outward facing. So like the recording light on the system, or on the device, flashes while it's recording, and it's facing out towards people, so I assume that might be fairly distracting to some degree, but hopefully it's not too obvious. I could also, like, cover up the lights with, like, electrical tape or something like that, but at the same time, I need to be able to tell if it's recording or something, so if I do that, I'll have to basically put on the electrical tape as needed, kind of thing. And I don't really like the idea of, like, putting an adhesive close to, like, those buttons and things like that, because I feel like that might, like, maybe it will eventually build up, and then the adhesive might end up, in the gadgets on the inside and goop it up. I think I'm probably worrying a bit too much about it, especially since, like, it's not like I have to, like, I'm not gonna be doing panels, like, every day, right? It's probably gonna be a fairly rare thing, but that is maybe my one concern with the microphone so far. But yeah, and all in all, the microphone, the camera, and the tripod was about 400 something bucks, which is a lot of money. But it's not worth it. Given the fact that I don't make any money from this channel, at least at this point. But I don't really anticipate that my channel will ever make a lot of money, just because of my how I handle the channel, its content, and how much time I get to put into it, and things like that. Oh, apparently I'm also running low on fuel. Well, hopefully I can hit a gas station here shortly. I have enough fuel to make it home, though. That's good. That's probably a good thing, that I can get home in time. So One idea that I actually had for this thing that might end up doing, what I might end up doing is, if you've listened to the main podcast, you know I have my video gaming bits section, and I love video gaming bits. Basically what it is it started as a Tumblr project I had, or really an Instagram project, where I was just talking about like random games in little bite-sized chunks, basically. And the video gaming bits is kind of an extension out of that, where it went to Tumblr, and then eventually I co-opted that name for a variety of other things. I think there's like a stream I did that was called the Video Gaming Bits, related to Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, where I was like talking about a different game on every day of the month. But the problem I've had doing video game bits for so long now is that I get a lot of the same games over and over again, and I end up talking about the same stuff over and over again. And I want to try to find a way to not do that as much. So I was thinking maybe one thing I could do, and this might be completely stupid, but it's just something I thought about, is potentially like have it where I basically randomly pull two games like I normally do, or randomly pull one normally, but randomly pull two games, and instead of just talking about them independently, like maybe do something that's like, which one would I rather play, or which one I think is a better game kind of thing. And then so like hopefully we can end up with some weird situations where I'm like comparing like a Dojin game to like, you know, some AAA Nightmare game or something like that, right? And you know, given that I don't really have the same priorities as other people when it comes to games, I would hope that would make for some like interesting thoughts about comparing things, and like maybe not necessarily that certain games like just pure polish would not, you know, end up winning out, right? That I would hope generally that would be the case, unless I'm very boring. Whenever I say like an answer like, what's your favorite Wii game, or rather, what's the best Wii game of all time? And if I say like Super Mario Galaxy, I feel dumb because I'm like, yeah, that's probably the right answer for what's the best Wii game. That's why I always kind of lean towards more of my favorite things, because what I like as my favorite games is always going to be a different conversation. Typically will be a different conversation. So it's something that I would like to explore potentially doing at some point. So we'll see. Maybe I'll try to pull something for next week. Like I said, I only go to the office like once a week, basically. So being able to do this show, I don't know if I will do it weekly. I might skip certain weeks. Although I don't know if this will be a consistent thing in general. Maybe I'll just kind of put it out as needed. That's going to be probably a theme with Patreon, is I will put out things as I can kind of thing. Not because that's how I want to do it, but that's because I will probably have to do it that way, just because the nature of, I already struggle enough to get content out as is, and I don't want to I don't want to take things away from people. I thought about it off and on about how I could, you know, essentially remove the podcast from public and then basically make that a weekly thing. But I kind of, actually, I want to go straight here, I think. Maybe. No, actually, I want to go left. I'm stupid. Now that I don't drive home every single day of my life, I don't have the same muscle memory for driving home. But I didn't want to take the podcast away. I don't know. I know people that listen to it. I don't want to gate it behind a wall. There's also the option of I know the CU podcast does something where they don't put out their entire podcast for everybody. They take out topic chunks. But the reality of editing all that stuff down is just, too much for me right now. If I was doing this full time again, maybe. But right now, no. So making clips and things like that take way more effort than you'd think, or at least on my side, they seem to take way more effort. Admittedly, I can never seem to make anything simple. One of the projects I was working on, or still am working on, is one about video game collecting and my methods for buying games and things like that, and keeping kind of a healthy mindset in terms of at least buying it and not being just demoralized due to rising prices and things like that. But I'm working on that, and the initial plan for that was to be a vlog kind of thing where I just kind of talk into the camera, and then it became a written thing, and then it became a nightmare, And I haven't done any real editing on it yet, so maybe on the back half it won't be so bad. I won't have to be so specific with the game footage, which will hopefully be pretty nice. But I made it just into way more of a thing than it should. But meanwhile, I think his name is like Super Derek or something. Like he's a RPG content creator. I only recently started looking into his stuff, and I don't think I'll like watch his content significantly. But I looked into it for two reasons. One is he had like a general suggestions video on like how to fit RPGs into your life if you're a busy adult person kind of thing, and it wasn't anything super special. You know, it's pretty much the stuff you'd expect. But you know, he made a good point of just like, hey, set aside a day of your life to basically, or day of an afternoon or something like that, to, you know, say I'm gonna play video game and this is all I'm gonna do kind of thing. And I thought that was a good point. So I did like kind of pull something from it either way, even if it wasn't like anything too terribly complicated. But he made like a video about like how he quit retro game collecting, which I don't want to say that he didn't necessarily quit it, because he talks about like buying Wii 360 and PS3 stuff now. And if you know me, my retro game rule is like 10 years. I don't care what your feelings are. 10 years, your game's retro. And I do not care if you agree with me or we disagree. It's perfectly fine. The retro label is some dumb thing anyways, right? But in my mind, I put it as 10 years just because it makes it easier for me to not sit there and be like, oh, but the PS3 can't be retro. To me, it's kind of like the idea of like, hey, you can go from being a 13-year-old to a 23-year-old, and you'll have disposable income and you'll start feeling nostalgic for things. You know, I don't necessarily think, I think definitely as you get older, the nostalgia factor comes more into play. But like even when I was in my mid-20s, I think people, you know, chalked up a lot of my feelings about games to nostalgia a lot, which I would argue against in a lot of ways, but I understand. I mentioned at the beginning of the gun gauge video or whatever, like just like some people say it's because it's nostalgia, and I don't really necessarily agree, but there is something to be said about like, you know, the games you grew up playing influencing the types of games you play in the future. But just because you're playing games based off those influences does not mean it's a nostalgia thing, right? Because I would say it's more about how you were grown, how you grew up, and the types of games you're playing, and the design philosophies behind them, and all that fun stuff. Anyways, but I got way off track here. But essentially, all I'm really trying to say is he made a video about it, and he literally about like retro game collecting and his feelings on it, and it was basically him just talking into a microphone for like 15 minutes, and it got like some fairly large number of views even for him, and people seem to like the video too, and I wish I was better about that stuff. I mean, admittedly, like based off the comments he left on the video, he wasn't really expecting it to do super well either, but I wish I was better at letting myself do more casual content like that, that wasn't just the podcast. And maybe in the future that's something I look at. Maybe I do something where it's like, hey, I only do the podcast every so often, or maybe it does become a Patreon exclusive thing, but otherwise you get like a you know, public topic video or something like that. Or maybe I just take out, you know, or specifically make portions of the podcasts be you know, designed in a way that I can clip them out in a way that I can, you know, just go ahead and use that as a video later. But, you know, at the same time, I feel like, I guess to some degree, I feel like that people who are following me closely would just see that video and be like, oh, I already listened to this on the podcast or whatever. So it's like duplicate content or something. So I don't know. It's hard. It's hard, especially if you want to edit it. The DC Superhero Girls podcast clip took me a lot longer than I thought it would, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think most of my stuff is too off the cuff to really be able to sit there and like identify what it should or shouldn't, what should or shouldn't be featured content or whatever. So, but yeah, so maybe at some point I relax that. Sorry, I'm thinking a little bit. I gotta get over to the right here. So how I find this Japanese market is I know there's a Denny's right by it. So, and the way my brain remembers that is like, I personally, I never go to Denny's, but I hear about Denny's in Japan a lot, and they're like seasonal menus and stuff, and so that makes me think of Japan, and so I'm like, yeah, the Japanese Denny's, right? It's probably good. But yeah, I usually, like, even though I go grocery shopping, I usually stop by the Japanese market to just grab some more specific things. Nothing too fancy. I like curry. I'm trying to buy more fish recently as well. Furikake. I'm a big furikake fan. Unfortunately, they don't have kimchi furikake, which is my favorite furikake. I have to go to another store across town for that, or order online. And ordering online, like, you have to buy them individually, I think. And like, you can buy like packs of furikake, but for some reason, at least the brand I buy, the kimchi one is like its own separate thing. So maybe it's like something special that is not like common. But that was the one that I always liked. The nori one's pretty good as well, and I also like, I forget what it's called. It's one with like, I think it's kind of brownish. I think it starts with a K or something maybe. So that one's pretty good too. So anyways, as I said, I will not be taking you into the store with me. I don't want to sit there and talk to myself. I only do that if I'm on the phone, because I'm not a criminal. I don't know why I said criminal, but anyways, so I'm gonna pause here, and then we'll get back to you as I'm heading home. I'll talk to you about what I bought. So, all right, I'm back. Oh, I forgot to put my seatbelt on first. That'd probably be good, but it's okay. Yeah, grocery shop. I did it. Tiny grocery shop. This very small shop. You can't really do a full grocery shopping there, but you can do like a supplemental shop. So I got so look, when I go to the Japanese supermarket, I don't always know what I'm going to come out with, because sometimes you go there and you're like, well, I want to buy stuff. Yes, I know your low fuel car, but I don't know how to utilize any of this stuff really. So depending on what it is, I mean, it's all fine stuff, but like some things you look at and you're like, well, this looks interesting, but I don't know what to do with it. And if I buy it on its own, there's a good chance I won't be able to like make something with it without doing a second trip back here to grab what is appropriate to go with it. But anyways, so I got pork belly, which I know pork belly is like a fairly normal thing. I don't really know what it is. One, I assume it's pork, and two, it's probably from the belly, right? So based off that and the fact that it looks very white when it's not cooked, I'm gonna take a shot that it's probably just like fatty pork. But I have had pork belly in the past at like restaurants and stuff, but it's always been like in things, so I don't know if I've ever really like taken a strong notice of like, yes, this consistency, this texture, this is the pork belly experience that I was looking for, or something like that. So I figured for the most part, I think most meats are pretty safe and just rice and stuff. So maybe get some rice, mix some, like, I don't know, onions in it. Either do soy sauce or furikake, something like that. Simple. But I'm also like I'm a big rice fan. Whenever someone's like, hey, what's your favorite food? Even though, it doesn't taste great on its own, white rice is pretty high up there on my list of things I enjoy consuming. Because it goes with a lot of things, right? It's so good. I don't know if it's so good for you. I mean, like anything, moderation, right? Moderation. But, it is good. I don't think I would eat like rice on its own, like a white rice. I mean, I would if I needed to or something like that, right? Like, that's not a problem. But, as a nutritious meal, I don't think, at least at this point in my life, I don't think I'd be like, white rice, delicious. So I got that. Oh man, they had pre-para figures there, like little toys. I was tempted, man. I shouldn't. It's just because it's like there in front of me, and it's like the novelty of like, yes, this is something I can buy right now in front of me, kind of thing. Like, not what I mean by that specifically is like, for example, when I went to Japan, It was a nightmare trying to get there for me. But once I got there and I got into my hotel room and I cooled down and lost my money, then found it again, I was like, I need to get water and probably some food, but it's like pretty late at night. I think it was like 10 o'clock. I just need to go to the corner store, the Combini, right? I need to do that. And so I went to the Lawson's across the street, and like I went in there all worked up because, I haven't really interacted with that many people at that point. But anyways, so I went in there and I found a I don't know what the shorten it, but the hypnosis mic or MC or whatever it's called. I found a calendar for that, and I was just like looking at it. I was like, oh man, a Hypno MC calendar for 2020. Yeah, I can, like, this is not something I should be able to buy in a convenience store, but because I'm in Japan, it's here and it's there. And that's the first thing I bought in Japan that was like some garbage. So now I have like this calendar for 2020 hanging around. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I didn't really like use it. It's one of those calendars that, like, the big thing is that, like, it has nice art on it, and then like it's kind of bad for tracking anything because there's no space to write anything, right? Like garbage calendars, I think they're trash fires. But if you want to oogle a man, but like I don't know, like I guess wouldn't you like oogle different men? I guess I don't know. It's like I feel like people have their favorite characters. You want like a calendar of your favorite character, not as like every single thing. I don't know. I'm thinking way too much about a gas station calendar, not gas station, convenience store calendar. But I mean, anyways, the point being, it's one of those things like, oh man, this is here. It's something that I would enjoy, and also it is at just this store that I normally would like have to go on the internet to buy this thing, kind of thing. And obviously, once you're in Japan and you're actually shopping around, that novelty wears off very quickly. But in that moment, after like being on a nightmare 48 hours of me getting a tooth pulled out and then flying to Japan with like blood gushing out of my mouth, and then also getting lost on the transit system, all that stuff, I can say there is some comfort in buying a calendar for, I forget how much it was. I feel like it was like 2,000 yen, so probably more expensive than it should have been. But anyways, so that was kind of the feeling I got. But I do not like Prepar that. Let me say this: it's not that I do not like Prepar. I just have not looked at Prepar at all, so I don't know anything about it. So I don't know if it's Prepar or Puripara. I've never been able to figure that out. So I just sound like a jerk. I sound like that guy that says Nier Automata all the time, said Automata, like I always do. So, anyways, that was there. I did not buy it though, thankfully. But I do try. Like, I think a lot of times when you start going to those stores, it's very tempting to just be like, I'm just going to get all the Japanese snacks, have a good time. I try very hard not to do that anymore. So I just buy stuff that seems like it'd be delicious, nutritious, question mark. Again, it's hard to buy like a complete meal there, or at least without knowing what to do with something. So I started buying natto. Natto's pretty good too. I like natto a lot. So anyways, Japanese grocery store, market, corner shop thing. I don't know. It is about the size of a convenience store, to be honest with you. So it's not particularly big. So that is there, and that is part of my life. And I usually go every other Wednesday, basically. And then like usually we'll get some like treats for people if I'm shipping out boxes. Just like, here, have this thing, I guess, maybe. So we'll see. But yeah, trying to think if there's much else. I don't know how long I've been talking for, to be completely honest with you. And then also, I feel like I'm pretty open about things when I talk about on the weekend podcasts and stuff. So, and if I talk about games, inevitably I'll talk about the podcast. Like, I've been playing more Strange Brigade. There's nothing new really like there, or much to add there. We did try to play God Eater 3 this weekend. Did not work out, unfortunately. I don't know what was going on, if it was PlayStation Network or the Bandai Namco servers or something, but God Eater was not playing nice. The servers went up for a little bit, then it went back down. So unfortunately, we will not get a chance to play God Eater again anytime in the near future. So that is Well, we'll see. I wish it wasn't God Eater that we were stuck on because, like, I just do not like God Eater 3 very much at all. So, like, it feels a little like it feels like we're just kind of drawing out the experience and making it even longer, even though I'm not liking it. So, but we'll see what happens there. And I really want to play more. I think like in terms of like games I want to play in the short term, I want to finish up Indiana Jones. I'd like to do that before the end of this year. I've been putting it off all year, and I am like 2/3 through the game, so I think you can wrap it up fairly quickly. The big thing is if I need to do a video on it. And then I also need to finish up Sparkling Feather, my second playthrough, just to see. I just wanted to give like getting a good ending in Sparkling Feather a good push, because the first time I beat Sparkling Feather on the PCFX, I got a bad ending. I didn't really know why, and I still don't really know why, and I haven't really done anything that different in my playthrough so far, so there's a very good chance that I'll end up in the bad ending. The big thing I'm using kind of to try to get me through Sparkling Feather is I'm following somebody's like cutscene videos they recorded, so I assume if I get all the cutscenes that they got, then maybe I'll get the good ending. I don't know. Unfortunately, they did not really record their playthrough. They just kind of recorded scenes towards the second half. They did record their playthrough early on, but I think because the missions take quite a while in that game and they're not that eventful, they just decided to start cutting it out, but that just made it harder for me. There's not really any good Sparkling Guide resources online, by the way, so I will probably be the closest thing. I would really like to be able to tell people how to get a good ending, but the reality is I just don't think it's going to happen. Maybe you have to like date enough people and get enough like relationships up, because that game has a pretty significant dating mechanic. But yeah, I don't know how it's gonna happen. But I've been wanting to do that one for a while. That was one of the videos that I wanted to finish for the English Guide initial post when that happened. But when I sat down and started looking at it, I was like, this is gonna be way more complicated than I thought it would be. And I was just trying to launch at that point. So that's why I end up with Tokimeki Card Paradise instead of Sparkling Feather. So Tokimeki Card Paradise is a fun little card game, though. So, actually, speaking of that, so if you don't know, Tokimeki Card Paradise is like a strip poker game on the PCFX. So, it is 18 plus. So, you little chidlets, don't go playing that game if you know it's good for you. But I was thinking recently about Christmas demos. I talked about this in the Discord a little bit. Like the Commodore 64 Season's Greeting demo from like 1982, I think, or something like that, or maybe it was before that, but. It's a cute little thing. Like it is maybe a little long, but apparently it was like something that played on like store displays at least that year. I wouldn't be surprised if multiple years in a row. For you know, showing off the graphics and sound of the Commodore 64, I'd assume, like a little tech demo kind of thing. If you didn't know, like when you went computer shopping, you'd have a bunch of computers set up typically, and then like some of them would be running benchmarks, things like that. I remember going into I think Fry's, and they had the Final Fantasy 11 benchmark running on some PCs there at the time. So unfortunately, I don't know if that original Final Fantasy 11 benchmark is lost media at this point, because the only benchmark I can find is benchmark 3, I think, and I'm only aware of, I think, benchmark 2 maybe. But anyways, so I don't know where to get those, but you know, they're probably somewhere out there. I haven't ever looked hard enough, so I don't want to say they're lost media without actually looking. But anyway, so I was like looking into that. I was like, what if like PC98 has some like Christmas stuff? And I did find like a visual novel called like Jackie's White Christmas or something like that. And that one was fairly safe for work outside. You do see some chests at some point. And it was pretty cute overall, but it was like just kind of like an adventure game, kind of go around and choose different options, have cute little graphics, and eventually, like, I don't know, you like celebrate Christmas or something at some point. I think it's like a cat girl that's like a bread thief or something. I did not pay too close attention to it. I just kind of like let it run in the background. And the other one was a PC88 Christmas game, and it was called, it might have just been called White Christmas. I don't know why they're both called White Christmas, but and that is like actual horny game. And that is like a strip card game as well. You play blackjack, I think, and then as you play through, the character like strips clothes. Although it's weird because she has blonde hair in like the character portrait, but then like in the full color graphic, she has blue hair. Maybe that's like a color limitations thing. I wouldn't be surprised. Ever play Wario's Woods on the NES? Wario is purple in that game, and my only assumption is color palette issues. Otherwise, why would Wario be purple? Although I guess I don't really know when his like official color was defined, because there was like, he was in Game Boy games originally, so I assume he was originally black and white. But I feel like on the box art he had yellow, but I don't know. Anyways, so yeah, so I looked at that and it was like a little like strip poker thing. It looked fine. I didn't really like. There's something kind of charming about the old art style in the PC-88 games. They're like very doughy characters, like Pillsbury Doughboy looking characters, which is fun, but it is erotic. So yeah. Anyways, hey guys, I got home again. I don't know how long this is. I don't have a timer in front of me or anything like that, but we'll see if we do this again. Maybe this is a one-time thing. Maybe this is an ongoing thing. I don't know how much I have to talk about. So, but I figured this is something at least I could offer to people who pay the Patreon. And if they want to hear me ramble, they can. And I can do it while I'm just driving. You know, don't have to worry about, you know, all the editing and all that garbage and stuff. Just get this. Get the audio raw. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm out. Thanks for coming. WugShore.com is the website. I don't know when this is going up, so I'm not going to sit there and like talk about anything that's going to be coming up. So hopefully I can launch Patreon. Hopefully if you Patreon, hey, if you're giving me money, thank you so much for giving me money. I appreciate it. I've been doing this free for 10 years, so you know, or mostly free. So if I'm worth your money and love, then I appreciate you taking the time to do that. So, anyways, I am out. Have a good night. If I can find the thing. There we go.